All right, LC, earlier we were talking about the formation of the association back in mid to late 80s, is that correct?
No, 1995.
95 officially?
When we took over this park. Now, we formed our association in 1988.
Mm-hmm. And that came together with a lot of interest was to clean up the cemetery first, is that correct?
Right. The cemetery had grown up, it's like a jungle. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the people of this community is a community cemetery, and it's a shame to see a cemetery abused like it was being, well, for instance, the four-wheel drive vehicles was tearing it up, and we needed to do something to stop that.
Mm-hmm. From taking care of the cemetery, you grew into the idea of rebuilding a pioneer or Civil War era village up on top of the mountain where the college site was. Is that correct?
Well, the way that came about, and I think I've already touched on that, we had a lunch with the president of UNA and his attorney, Dr. Lovett. One day we went to lunch. It was three of us, Louise and I, and Dr. Robert Potts and Dr. Lovett, and we went to lunch, and we were trying to touch base with them, see how we could incorporate them with us, since UNA really got started here. Roots come back to LaGrange, so we need to incorporate UNA with us, be on the same page with each other. So Dr. Lovett mentioned during lunch, have you ever thought about getting the park turned over to you people, the LaGrange Living Historical Association? We hadn't thought about that, because how are you going to do that? Get the State Historical Commission to turn over a state park? And Dr. Lovett said you'll have to go through your state legislature. And I want to plug our state senator at that time, Bobby Denton, and Marcel Black, our state representative. Hadn't been for those two people, we wouldn't have this park. Mm-hmm. And while I'm giving plugs to people, my wife, Louise, if it hadn't been for Louise, we wouldn't be here today. Every organization has to have a leader or leaders. And believe me, Louise is the backbone of this association. Mm-hmm. If it hadn't been for her, I look around and see so much that if it hadn't been for her, it wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Louise. But we wouldn't have the park had we not had the meeting with Dr. Potts and Dr. Lovett that day. And they mentioned getting a bill drawn up and getting the park turned over to you. We didn't know whether we could do it or not, but you know, you got to try. Mm-hmm. And we need a meeting place. At that time, we didn't have a meeting place, so we got the bill passed and got the park turned over to us, and then moved the Welcome Center here, got this house donated to us, and moved it from about 8 mile out here, 6 mile, and set up had a place to meet, and we call it our Welcome Center.
Let me make sure I understand. Earlier on we were talking about this initially being like a state park, but actually the Alabama Historical Association was overseeing the land. There was really no developed facilities here, is that right?
No, they had a caretaker house, and they had a caretaker at that time, and what the caretaker was doing was cutting the grass. And
mostly for the cemetery or for the college site park?
They wasn't involved with the cemetery.
Okay.
They hadn't done anything at the cemetery. Like I say, the cemetery had grown up. It was just overgrown and being abused by vandals, and so that's one of the reasons we formed our association.
So here, where the college was, we had a historic marker and some picnic areas, and was that pretty much it at that time?
They had the picnic pavilion, we call it, back behind me here, the overlook there. That and the caretaker house was the only thing that was here.
Okay. So why the interest in taking original, you try to preserve the period, and you only take original log cabins and material from that era to recreate buildings on the site, right? Why that interest in doing that?
Well, we thought, period, going back to Civil War, period, these houses that we took down and moved up here was period things. And a pioneer village would be something to draw somebody or a group up here. The picnic pavilion and the caretaker house wouldn't be anything to draw anybody to the park. Mm-hmm. So that's the reason we got to move the buildings up here.
Do you have a master plan, or as the facilities became available to you, you would bring them up?
Well, as I mentioned before, Chevron Oil Company bought this property down Tuscaloosa and Fayette County, and they had a lot of buildings on them, and they wanted all the buildings moved off due to what they were going to do, mine the property. And so they had log buildings on the property, and that's what we were interested in. We create a pioneer village. So that was ideal. That was the plan, to go down and take these buildings down and move them up here and put them back up, and that's what we've done. We've got about, I think it's 11 or 12 buildings set up here, and we're still working. We got 2 or 3 more to put up.
Now, what year was that you got your first buildings out of Tuscaloosa?
I'm not sure. Probably around 98.
98. And were those buildings donated to you?
No,
or you had to
we bid on them, and they were bid off, and we highest bid.
So where did you acquire the funding to be able to submit a bid? Is this all through charitable donations?
Well, what we was bidding was so low that we had money in our fund at that time to buy these buildings. It was real. They were just more or less wanting to move, mm-hmm. So we got the buildings real cheap.
Mm-hmm. Just through membership dues, or who were some of the early important partners with you? People
would donate money to us at that time, and as someone would die, they'd give a memorial to us, and so we had a little funding. And the state, when we took over this from the Historical Commission, it was in the deed that they would continue to fund the park. So not only did we get the park, but we got a tremendous raise in yearly funding to keep the park going. Mm-hmm. And they continued that up until 3 years ago, and we lost funding. State don't fund us anymore. Now through grants and through different organizations, we get some funding.
Mm-hmm. Over the years, I know because you're near the overlook, you can almost see the Tennessee River and Wilson Lake out there. TVA was a partner with you. Who were some of the other partners, either financially or just through promotional support?
Oh my, it's so many. RC&D has been tremendous help to us, and down through the years, and TVA has been tremendous funding from TVA.
So we have RC&D and TVA,
and through other organizations, and it's so many of them. Clubs, for instance, a few Kiwanis Club and different ones have donated money down through the years to us, and you know, a penny don't mean much, but to put a lot of pennies together, it means a lot. Mm-hmm. So that's the way we've operated, with just a little bit here and a little bit there, and it adds up to where we, if we need to do a major project up here, for instance, a caretaker house, we just got through putting new roof on it. Mm-hmm. So we go to RC&D or to our county commission. Now that's I want to plug them, because they are always willing to help us any way they can, and they're limited funds too, but they will. We call on them all the time, and they sometimes, most of the time, they come through with a little help for us.
Mm-hmm. And that's used to buy materials, and a lot of your association members will volunteer time to actually do moving of buildings and construction.
Right. Commissioner Roger Creekmore, he's a good friend of mine, and you know, we talk all the time. I meet him when I go out somewhere. run into Roger, and he always asks me, what you got going? You know, he's interested in us, but, you know, they're limited to the funding.
Mm-hmm. Well, in today's economy, I know that has to, facilities like this are the first ones to get reduced funding or no funding. So how are you able to hold up during this time?
Well, our membership, we got somewhere close to 200 members, but we're getting older. Our original members and our staff is getting older, and we need, desperately need newer membership, and we need funding, financial help to keep this thing going. I'd hate to see it die, but you know, I wonder what's going to happen 10 years from now. We need financial help, and we need new members.
At LC, we were just chatting there about, at this point, the current economic conditions and how it's really put a challenge into the funding for maintaining and expanding the park.
Well, funds are drying up. The economy is getting tight everywhere, not just us, but everywhere. But our funds that we used to get have dried up, and we're struggling to get funds to keep things going. Now, if you own a home, it's always something to do. Well, up here, like I told you a while ago, we have 11 or 12 buildings to keep up. We have 4 properties. And most of them was donated to us, and we bought one of them. But anyway, we have those properties to keep up, and it takes money. And we can't, I mean, we put so much sweat and blood into getting them up to where they are, and we can't walk away from them. You've got to maintain them, and to maintain it where we'll have something to leave, a legacy, you might say, to leave, we got to take care of what we got. But the funding are drying up.
Well, how can people or community leaders contribute?
First is we need help. Second, we need financial help. We need labor, but we need financial help. And people can donate. It's a non-profit organization, and they can donate just for tax-free, tax-exempt
Donations, gifts, memorials, or even historical items from the area?
Well, Roland, in the next 10 minutes, somebody may drive up out here and have a trunk load of stuff that their mother or dad or granddad, and they want to donate to our association. Well, a lot of times it's valuable stuff, and we give write-off for considerable donation, you know.
Okay, so people can visit your new website to look into giving gifts, memorials, or cash donations?
I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm excited about this website. It's so many people today that people my age, not many own a computer, but younger than I am, everybody's got a computer nowadays. And the website is constantly, Louise was telling me last night, she put a picture on the website just a few days ago, and she's got hundreds of hits on that picture. Louise being an artist, she drew a picture, and the camera can't pick it up, but it's on the wall over here. And just putting that on the web, she's got hundreds of hits on it. So people can donate through just a donation or membership or memorial.
Okay. Well, we thank you for your years of service.